I went ahead and put a little bit of tape on the flange so I don't mark it up when I'm using the marker. Okay, first step, I'm going to create a template. This is the cardboard that was in the packing with the fan. This, of course, is the flange that is going to be mounted and screwed down to the roof. So I'm making a template to the right size to cut the hole. It seems like that'll be easier than messing around with squares and stuff on the roof. I'm going to line up the edge just inside, and then I'm going to trace where to cut the cardboard, and then making sure, of course, that the overall size of the cardboard is to the outer dimension of the flange part, so that the hole is big enough to put the flange down into. I wouldn't just want to run around and trace the inside, because then that hole would not be big enough for the flange. And here you can see I put just a little bit of lip out, so that'll be the overall outside dimension, just enough space to fit both sides inside, so the hole would be big enough. There we have that one marked. Now I'll offset, pull away from here a little bit, line this side up, this way, so I can use that same tape to draw, since the hole in the flange are square. Okay, so lining up this side, line that up and that up. Make sure that the line is square to the sides of the cardboard, and then create a little bit of space. A little bit of overhang should be big enough for the flange to fit through after you put the hole. Just hold this down and just begin to mark that off. And there's the mark. So now we'll just join up those two marks over there. We'll have our template. And there we have the cutout. We'll just fit this on the flange. Over here. And the cutout nicely covers the edge. So when we cut out to this size, the flange will fit right in there. But I wanted to double check. Here's the template I made. It's more than 14 inches on the side, and just making sure that it's going to fit nicely. We are putting it straight above the bed. Our plan being to draw air from the front windows, the regular old door windows up there, through the van and across the bed. So that's why we're putting it back here. We're going to take out this ridge here, this corrugation spot, which is second one forward. Definitely want to be absolutely sure before we make any cuts or holes we don't risk running into either of these ribs. Okay, so we taped up some plastic on the inside of the van, try and keep the shavings collected, any dust or other metal that we might get from the cuts and drill holes and stuff. So just taped up this piece of plastic to the sides, corners, one rib ahead where we're working, and then I'm going to tape up the back here, and then we'll close the door. Here we have the pack of hardware that comes with the kit. We can see our connectors that we're going to attach to the wires after the fan's in place to wire it up. We have 3 different kinds of screws. There is a pan head here, looks longer and smaller diameter than the pan head here. You can see that one. So I've counted them up. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 of these shorter, fatter ones, and more of the longer, skinnier ones. And then the third shape size of screw is this countersunk one. That one's going to go on the inside with the inside trim, and this one is going to go through the roof to hold the flange down. And the shorter, fatter one, there's only 4 of. They're going to go through the edge, through the sides of the fan into these mounting screws on the flange after the flange is in place. So I want to keep them separate when we get them out. And actually I'm going to do a little bit different here. Just going through the flange and then through the sheet metal in the roof, really not driving these screws very far. So I went ahead and bought some stainless steel. I bought a small variety so I can line up which screw matches the right size for the holes in the flange. So I think it looks like a number 8, which is going to be this one here. And yeah, I did go ahead and splurge on some stainless so that it'll never rust. Okay, first step, we're going to use a little bit of dish soap and water, and we're going to clean the area with that. We're going to clean it more thoroughly with denatured alcohol later. All right, a moment of double checking here. We wanted to make sure that the flange towards the rear has all flat roof. So we're putting the flange ahead of this corrugation end, with the edge is right there. And then up here, just for good measure, we know that the roof rib that goes side to side, holds the whole roof up, should be right there. We measured that inside as 3 inches from the edge, front edge of this corrugation to this this side to side rib. So probably no big deal if you ended up, running a screw into that. And I also, again, triple check, in our van we do have the interior cargo hold lights. There's a light bar. It's comfortably back here, so it's not in our way, not going to interfere with this installation or with us cutting. So with that, we know how far front and back to put the cardboard template. We started putting tape down so we can draw on the van and not scratch outside of the cut we're going to make. Got that other piece over here. So ready to put tape under where we'll make the side-to-side cuts, and then draw around our template, and then go ahead and give it a cut. I put down some towels. You might want to use a blanket, and I put down a piece of plywood, measuring about a half dozen times. Wanted to make sure that this looked like it was square, this edge to the roof seam. So measured here and here, make sure they're the same. Measured here to this edge where the light was different on the bend there, make sure that they were the same. Again, trying to hit where it's comfortably straight along this edge, and also make sure that would match this side. So believe that hole is nice and square. We're gonna triple check it yet again before we get to cutting metal. And measuring this one more time, it is exactly 16.5 from where it feels like this ridge starts to climb to where this one starts to climb. And the edge to edge, outside to outside on the flange is exactly 16.5 also. So definitely want to make sure you're right square in the middle of those ribs. Okay, lined up where I want the center of the drill to be. Made sure that its edge was at each edge of the line. The outside of the hole we're going to cut. I'm going to center punch each of them. And our first dry fit. Woohoo! Looking great. Yeah. Okay, here we got the hole and the old piece of roof in the bottom. Going to use a regular old metal file off these very rough edges. You can see one right there. I don't want that to be either in my finger or interfering with a good clean seal between the van and the flange. So I'm going to take those rough ones off with the file. Quick side note, wasn't really happy with the cleanliness of these corners where I drilled them. You can see these rather large shards I've been pulling off with some needle nose pliers, just getting underneath grabbing them and twisting them off. I think in hindsight maybe a step bit would do a better job, cleaner job of leaving these clean. They're plenty reasonable on the outside here, but on the inside there were shards and parts, so I cleaned them up with the pliers. We're going to apply a little primer around the edge. We've got these filed down, cleaned up. Used a wet towel to clean around the whole area. Cleaned up the worst of the sharp parts left over, especially from drilling the hole with that bit that I used. So now I'm just going to use regular old primer and the cost-effective brush and get a little primer around the edge. You can even see, if you look closely here, there's a little paint came off the top. So again, make sure we get that nice and sealed over with some good primer. And I'm going to get a little bit extra. Like I said, I know that the drill is not real clean in the corners underneath, so I'm going to go ahead and hit that bottom up here too. Clean up the edges of the van and of the flange with some denatured alcohol. So I want to make sure that the top is nice and clean for the lap self-leveling sealant, and I'm going to want the bottom to be nice and clean for the butyl tape. So the recommendation with some denatured alcohol. Pretty confident that our primer is dry. So give that a shot. And make sure we have all that masking tape off that we had put on earlier. And I definitely want to get inside this, on the edge of this corrugation here. Okay, I'm going to apply our butyl tape. I'm going to go ahead and go long and trim it off after the fact. How that's going, so we're going to start again. By 30 feet of it at a time. We need about 6. Notice we're applying it to the ribbed side, the bottom. And you notice I went ahead and marked before I was on the roof where things can get a little sketchy, the top, the front, and the top, the side. Make sure I didn't make that mistake. Sure your tape covers your holes, because you want to make sure you've got tape all the way around the holes that right up against there. Now I got the 1-inch wide tape. I noticed there was 3/4 inch available. I think the 1 inch is going to work pretty well. I feel like I'm covering most of the flange with each pass, with a single pass, so it feels like the right thing to do. Okay, that was a little discovery just now. If you pull your backing off in one nice continuous motion, that seems to come up pretty well. If you stop mid-pull, it'll probably catch again. Looks solid all the way around. Getting some touch between. Make sure we've got the tape touching through the corners there. It seems to be merging pretty well with just a little bit of a push and a squish. Once again, screws on the side and trying to hit right in between these two ribs. And go for it. I'm trying to make sure I get that tape to touch and adhere all the way around. Now I'm going to put the screws in, and then we'll do the lap sealant after I cut away the extra butyl tape. Okay, gonna screw the flange down with the 3/4 inch stainless number 8s that I bought and pre-drill those with an 1/8 inch bit. A little bit strategically, I'm gonna put the screws in at the highest point. The van roof goes like this. So I'm going to draw the highest point in first and then work from there. Definitely do not want to over tighten these, do not want to strip them out. Just find yourself using bigger screws. Finish these with a hand screwdriver. Okay, I've actually gone around several times with the screwdriver, pulling in an 1/8 or a 1/16 of a turn each time, and that has, as you can see, squished out some of the butyl tape. So I'm going to use a plastic scraper, cut that off around there so it's flush with the edge of the flange before we put on the self-leveling adhesive. After I cut away the excess butyl tape, I went back with a touch of denatured alcohol and a paper towel, and I was able to really get that clean back off of the surface of the van. So now we're ready for the self-leveling adhesive. We have the lap sealant self-leveling. We're going to hit each screw head and all the way around the perimeter. Going to put a good bead there so it's on top of the flange and also oozes it over onto the van. So here we go. We can see where we started there. It's already oozing out onto the top of the van. That's good. And making sure that we've got good coverage up onto the flange. And I just put a dab in here and there. Okay, we have our lap sealant in place. It is oozing out nicely. It's adhering to the top of the flange nicely. We've been around. We've added a couple extra dollops. I went ahead and doubled up the leading edge, you know, where wind's going to be more likely to be coming across the van. This is the front of the van. We've already opened up the fan with the hand crank, open, close, so we can get to the screws, where the screws are going to go through the outside and then into each of the holes. Remember, these had to be on the sides. So pulled the wires out a little bit. We're going to drop them in the middle and then install those last step here. And there it is. And just add these 4 screws. Try and not drop it into the adhesive. These metal clips into which you drive your screws to hold the fan down. This side were pushed all the way down for some reason, probably from me pushing on it. And with it all the way down, could not align the screw holes in the fan itself, where this side is up a little bit and was going in reasonably well. So we took the fan back off, took those two screws back out, and raised these clips and try this again. On. We're all in. Here we are. Okay, let's go inside and wire it up.